Good morning, friends. Welcome to my channel. My name's Justin. I play guitar on songs in Nashville. It's been a while. It's good to see you all again. I have been ultra busy, took a trip for a family reunion, all sorts of stuff. It's been really good. And I also have a course coming out. It might be next week, it might be the week after that, but it's really close. We are wrapping up some promo materials. You know, I did this course with Brett. It's going to be through his channel, Brett Papa. I want to also put some of the promo stuff on my channel, and I want to remind you all to look for that. And I want to remind you all, I'm going to give away an aux box, okay? This is something that is a really good tool for recording or just playing at home. You can take an amp, any amp, and crank it completely and not disturb your neighbors, let alone the people in your house. Like you could run it on headphones. It's a speaker emulator and a load box, okay? So what that means is you turn the dial on the back to 4, 8, or 16 ohms, just like amps that have variable output transformers. You plug your speaker cable from your speaker out of your amp into the back of the aux, and then you connect your aux to your computer. And there's a few different ways to do that, and that's beyond the scope of this video, okay? It's not that hard. There's going to be 4 songs. They start very simply, and then they work their way up into more of a rock or maybe Tom Petty thing. And I want to hear some cool intro parts. I want to hear cool chorus parts. There aren't any lyrics or anything, but this is just sort of, the idea is to use this revisiting of some fundamentals, like where all the notes are on the fretboard, how to use just pieces of chords melodically or to come up with a hook. Revisiting some of these fundamentals, some of these tools in order to be creative. That's why it's called Tools for the Creative Guitarist. I want you to be able to come up with stuff that you're confident that this is pretty cool. And if the band I'm playing with wants something slightly different, I can shift into something slightly different, and it's not a big deal, you know. I think a lot of guitar players get so stuck on learning exact riffs or exact licks from songs or other players that they read tab from and just got it down, that it's kind of working against a lot of us for being able to come up with things on our own, right? You're kind of like, I don't know what to do. So that's the idea. Look for that. Look for the drop of the course. Look for the giveaway. I think in the next week or two would be my guess. So on to this video. I have some footage from Sony where I was tracking. This was a couple weeks ago. It's been a long time since I've been able to try to finish this video. There's a really interesting thing going on at Sony where they put our guitar cabs in a space that doesn't necessarily isolate them very well. And at first you think, what in the world? Like, these are just screaming out loud in the tracking room. And then, if you think about it a little further, is that really a problem? So, here's the video from that day at the session. And I actually go through my and Adam Shenfeld's rigs. Everybody else is out at lunch. I had brought my own lunch, and I sort of walked through and talked through both of the things that we brought for that day. So, enjoy. Hey friends, I'm at the studio today. A lot of gear in a tight space. I'll show you some of that, but the reason I thought to make a video is I pinched the snot out of my pinky finger on my fretting hand. I don't know how well that's going to come through, but that's like this really gnarly blood blister. It just hurts. So it's kind of affecting the things that I play. And I've landed on some things and kind of just been like, ow, you know. But I don't know. Try to play a session with no pinky on your fretting hand. Sounds fun, right? Not a big deal. I have friends who almost lost the entire first knuckle of their fretting hand middle finger. Uncle Larry being one of them. Really the only one. That would really be ridiculously painful and difficult to get around. But yeah, doesn't feel great. let me show you some of what we're working with here. The other guitar player today is Adam Shenfeld, and he's got his full rig. I've got my cartridge rig here. And so this is what we're currently working with. Here are my guitars. I'm playing my favorite Dan Electro baritone, which at some point started as a 63 reissue. That's what that body style is, but it had some mods the previous owner did that I don't know what, but it sounds different than any other Dano Barry I've ever played. Have my Danocaster White Guard, and I've got my Novo. And for this project, I really haven't reached for anything else yet. It's been really great to cover all the bases with that. I've got this Gator case that I don't care if the cartridge guys kind of throw around or beat up. We've had to replace some screws in it, but it's been a really good stand. That's the greatest chair of all time to sit in and play guitar. These are the best meat snacks ever. Vacadillos is my guess. Every time I see that, I grab it. Running into the old basement, my little Ampujule is out. Got my Morgan. I'm gonna find a matchless for that shelf, and then my tape echo, when I'm done fixing it, goes back there. But for now, this is like gear space and coffee shelf. And then I've got my 69 Marshall, which is just such a great amp. I'll show you why I'm not using that. And it's because over here, you see the two spaces that our cabs are in. I don't want to run too hot of an amp because you can hear my cab through these blocks of foam. They literally just kind of created a room. Well, you can see down in there, but that's where our cabs are. So, you know, my favorite records of all time were made when all the noise bled into all the other mics. So we're getting guitars and the drum mics for sure. So let's take a look at Adam's rig. Let's peek over here. Adam has a substantial pedal board with all sorts of cool stuff on it that I don't really use. So it's really fun to hear him. We kind of go for different things too. That's always cool when you've got two electrics. He has a second little satellite board that stays in his rig as well that he uses for ambient things. He's also mostly running through a basement. He's got this little odr-c, he's got a Silvertone. He's got this great old, I think this is an 18-watt Marshall combo, or it's a JMP, old JMP combo. And he'll run that through his 212. He's using a Bassman cab, so his cab is in that little foam room, and my cab is in this little foam room. He's got a mid-60s Bassman closed back, and I have a Bogner 212 oversized open back. So, over here, I'm going to check out some of Adam's guitars. So, I love his Strat. He's playing it's like an 88 body with a replacement neck. It just sounds really good. Kind of a fat, dark Strat. His Les Paul is awesome. He's got an old Guild Starfire, kind of like the one that I bought from Uncle Larry. He's got an old Tele Custom here with the humbucker in the neck. And then if you know Adam's playing, if you listen to Jason Aldean records or anything, he uses this Melody Maker with a humbucker in the bridge, and it looks like one of those blade pickup humbuckers. He uses that a lot. And then, of course, the old SG Junior with a single P90 and a wrap tail, an intonated wrap tail, which is cool. And you can see he used to have a vibrola. It's got the little snake bite, as they call it. So that's kind of the deal. We're at Sony, and you can see behind me the piano room. There's our keyboard player station. Miles McPherson is playing drums. Mark Hill's playing bass. Over my shoulder where I'm sitting, Pat McGrath is sitting here playing acoustic. Everybody's so great. So, fun project. A little bit of challenge with the pinky injury, but it's coming along. So, good day. Okay, so the cabs are in these big foam blocks, and they sort of try to close them off by, I don't know, it's like they make walls out of them and then they put one on top, and if there's nowhere that air can get directly out, like it does tame a ton of the high end, but it's still loud. If I'm sitting there with my cans off, like it's pretty noticeable. It's not like I would say it's at least speaking volume, if not higher, you know, and the drums are right across the room. So is that a problem? Well, it can be if you're making a pop record and you're going to mix and match parts from the guitar player and from the drummer. What you don't want to happen is to need to fly something in from the guitar from a different section of the song, and then to have the original thing that guitar player played while the drummer was playing kind of peeking out through the drum tracks, especially as a mix engineer starts to EQ and compress some of these things. That stuff will stick out more. So as long as everyone's on the same page in terms of, if we use this whole drum track, we got to use these guitar tracks, you know. Like, you can fix something if there's just like a little like slight execution error that you're not going to really notice. But if they're muting a track from Guitar World that was being played while the drums were going down and they were pretty hot in the drum mics, that could be an issue. Where it's a good thing, and this is why I don't really think it's a problem, it's not like I'm not going to work at Sony because of this. I love Sony. Pardon me. Where it's a good thing is that I just think about a lot of the records that I love, absolutely love. And they're live records, and everything is bleeding into everything else. B.B. King live at the Regal, Hendrix Band of Gypsies. There's so much live Zeppelin stuff, you know. Jimmy Page was a studio genius, is a studio genius. One of the original guys, right? Original session players. Had command of so many different styles, like Celtic, folk, acoustic, and random open C tuning or whatever. Yep. Great slide player. Yep. Great parts. Great layering. Yep. And then live, it's just all rock and roll, you know, Les Paul around the knees, kind of not even in tune a lot of the time, but just like the visceral energy coming off of the guitar in his hands was so cool. There's some Stevie Ray live stuff that I have that I absolutely love. And that's just kind of, I guess my argument is that on those records, which we all have some live records that are our favorites ever, everything's bleeding into everything else. So if the songs and the performance are good, what's the problem? You know? And so I think in these sorts of situations, and this isn't even the only situation where we have bleed, you know. There are two other situations that I'll get to in just a second. In these sorts of situations, I think it serves to enhance that effect, the effect of a live band, the effect of a bunch of humans in a room together doing takes. Let's get a good take. We were all good there. Awesome. That feels like a band. And that's part of what I love about tracking with another electric guitar player, especially somebody like Adam. You go into it knowing, and this is kind of the unspoken thing between electric guitar players in Nashville. For the most part, you're going to take turns, okay? One guy's going to come up with the hook and probably play the solo on the first song, and the other guy's going to do the second song. And you're just going to go back and forth because both of you are pretty good. You can handle whatever the thing is. Now, sometimes I'm paired with a guy who is just an insane country player, like James Mitchell, right? Or Brent Mason. If it's my turn, quote unquote, if we've been alternating songs, and then here comes a song that's like ultra chicken pickany, like You Should Be One of the Guys with a thumb pick and acrylic nails, you know, that's not me, but that is James, that is Brent. I'll probably hand it off to them. Likewise, if the other guy's not really a slide guy and they're like, give us some sort of rip and slide solo, and it's his turn, he'll probably be like, why don't you do that? It's just, I think the point of that is we can view each other. I can view Adam as like, holy crap, this guy is awesome. And I'm not going to let that make me insecure, which is going to make me overplay and going to make me try to prove myself and do too much and try to be the MVP. That's what Rob McNally calls the competition, you know. Sessions are great until you're on the gig with the competition. That's a paraphrase of a quote he told me. And basically, I think Rob would tell you that he probably did that a little early on in his career. It's basically new guys that feel like, well, I got hired because I have this certain thing, so I have to spew that thing over everything I do, right? And that's just not the case at all. If you only do your thing at 10 all the time, you are going to do this because you've shown you have one thing and everybody's ready to move on past that thing. So I can look at Adam and say, this guy is freaking awesome. He's on every Jason Aldean record ever. He's on so many other records. He's got this really cool rock thing that is just awesome. It's super creative. There's a lot of energy. He's always got cool parts. He comes up with weird stuff. I can let that inspire me to be the best version of me. I don't have to let that intimidate me into, like I said, overplaying, right? So we can each focus on being the best version of ourselves. I don't have to try to do the same thing he just did on the last song and try to show everybody, well, I can do that too, you know. We want to approach each song as, what's the best for this song? You're playing the intro part and the solo on the first one. Well, I'm gonna play the meanest, most locked in rhythm guitar behind that possible. And that's the meat and potatoes of my job, really, you know. No matter which guy is taking the quote-unquote lead stuff in the song, we are supporting musicians. Everything serves the vocal. Your solo serves the vocal. The intro part serves the vocal. The fills in the second verse, if they're not piano, and they do come from electric guitar, those serve the vocal. The piano serves the vocal. Everything, okay? So even when it's like your turn to take a lead ride on an outro solo or whatever, like, it's from a place of service. This isn't your record. You're not like featured. It's not Guitar Hero World, you know. It's all from a supporting role. All right. 2 other studios that have bleed issues. I told you I'd get back to this, and I'm going to let you all go. One is Sound Emporium. I did a video on this. It's called This Poor ISO Booth. And if you look at that video, I'll have a link in the description. The booth where the guitar cab lives, there's a sliding glass door, okay? That door has been bumped just a little bit by cartage guys pushing cases through. So much that when it's fully shut, the door kind of has these little grooves cut out of it. So when it's shut, between the wall and the door, you can just see like the tiniest bit of light. Well, where you can see light, sound has a direct path, okay? So check that video out. It just is the same sort of thing as at Sony. That's not a problem unless you're going to do this ultra pop thing of manipulating tracks after the fact and muting things and flying things and whatever. If there's loud guitar in the drums, that's probably the guitar track that should be active during the song. When that happens, again, it serves this vibe of like, we're just humans playing music. We're a band. We're being a band, you know? So it's really helpful until it's a problem, and then it's a big problem. The other place, I'm not going to name this because this is an actual thing that this studio needs to fix, and I don't feel like throwing them under the bus. This studio has an acoustic booth with a really heavy door. Most of these studios have really heavy doors. That's how you isolate sound. It's mass, okay? Well, this door to this booth, the hinges are off or something so that when you shut it, it kind of springs back open like 3/4 of an inch. And you can't really tell that it's open unless you look really closely. Well, when that happens, and since it's the acoustic booth, that's a big problem. Now you have drums in the acoustic track. And, you know, once again, if the acoustic guy got his part and then the drummer decided, I'm going to take another pass and do something slightly different, it could be a real problem. I have some audio from this studio for you to listen to. This is kind of crazy. So this is the acoustic mic. I think it's 2 mics on a session, and listen to how many cymbals are in this acoustic. Now this makes it so hard for the mix engineer. The producer, if he's or she is mixing, you know, you're going to put EQ and you're going to put compression on things, and it's going to make this problem worse. But just check this out. This is how bad this can be. Okay, so you might think, well, if the drums are playing the whole time, what's the big deal? Doesn't it just add to that live band thing, you know? Well, kinda, yeah. But also, if you're hearing that, there's something in the way that that door is open just enough that it's like there's a really big delay. Some of those crashes sound super late because they kind of swell themselves in the room, but the fact that it's getting through this really heavy door just by it being not airlocked, basically. It's not even open. You can't see light or anything, but it's just open enough. Like here's the door jamb. It's supposed to be shut flat like this, but it's like peeking half open. I mean, it's barely 3/4 of an inch. It's something in the hinges that make it come to rest at that spot. They need to reset the door, but the thing weighs 300 pounds and they haven't done it. That's a problem because on that particular project, I know that that was a super modern rock country thing, and I know the producer. I know that a lot of those drum sounds are maybe going to be replaced, and so, or he has multiple takes, and so he's kind of stuck. He's stuck with the one take of drums that has to match his take of acoustic, right? You can get around that if you know that going into the studio. You can, I mean, it means you have to get fewer songs per session, which we're always in favor of. 1 song a session is incredible. I have so much time to really work out and hone a really great part. That's usually only masters. You know, low budget master, you'll do 2, maybe 3. You start getting into 4 songs a session and everybody just needs to have a couple of parts that they can do that's quick, right? So it makes everyone play a little bit safer. The first thing you see guys in my position, players, ask when you show up is, what's our pace today? Like, what's the mindset I need to have? Hey, we've got 2 songs per session. Amazing. That means I have 90 minutes, which feels like an eternity, you know? Or if they're like, hey, we're going to get 4, it's kind of like, okay, so I know what my 2 parts are going to need to do. They need to cover the meat and potatoes of what is expected of my chair. A cool intro part, energy and power in the chorus, and a solo, and I've got to make it sound like 2 guys that are listening to each other and the whole band all serving the vocal, right? So the bleed thing, again, my favorite records were made when it was just all bleed. And even modern live records, like they're not fully isolated, you know. It's just really not a problem until you're doing some post-pop production where you're moving things around or isolating tracks. You really want maximum isolation on each of the tracks, the acoustic, the drums, the electrics. And sometimes you're kind of stuck after the fact. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative. You should like it. You should subscribe to my channel, and you should stay tuned for my course coming out. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.